Welcome to the Legion Outriders podcast, your source for the latest Legion news, opinion, and analysis. And now, the Outriders.
Hello, Outriders, and welcome to episode 150 of the Legion Outriders podcast. I'm Outrider Matt.
And it's Outrider Dan.
And joining us today is the guy responsible for everything you don't like about Legion, Mr. LJ Pena. How you doing, bud?
I have no follow-up comments. I cannot add on to that.
I'm going to hit you with a
real
truth
good.
bomb right now, yeah.
Some days I log on to the Facebooks or Legion Discord or wherever varied and hot take opinions may be found, and I feel that. I felt that on an emotional level, so thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem. But before we get started, we'd like to take a second to thank our patrons that make recording and publishing this show possible. Today's Outrider Facts is Mr. J.D. Nielsen, a.k.a. Gladiator on the Discord. Did you know, Dan and LJ, he's not the first person to use the name Gladiator. It's a name that's been handed down since the days of ancient Rome. In order to claim the title of Gladiator, you have to track down and defeat the previous Gladiator in single combat. I hear JD awaits the day with anxious anticipation when someone will come and challenge him. This is a true fact.
There can be only one.
There can be only one, that's right. So thank you, JD.
This is why I remember his name.
There you go. See, he is the Gladiator. But we hope that your reign is long and prosperous. If you are enjoying the show and would like to support it, head on over to patreon.com/Legion Outriders. On today's show, we've got a lot of stuff. What's going on, Dan?
Oh, we got literally.
Buku.
I'm looking at my show notes here. We've got topic on topic on topic here because we just got off LVO. And we're I mean, the hangover's just falling off, right?
You're still hungover? Wow.
Yeah, probably. And we're like the Legion train is not stopping here.
No. Gosh,
Jeez.
It's just been more news. Yeah, we recorded that weekend after, and then immediately after that, we got news about the Special Forces operations, special operations. Yeah.
And we got, the Asajj preview and the Imperial Remnants battle. Oh my God!
But we've also got lots of data points, and people love data points, huh, LJ?
Yeah. So
Indeed. We will discuss the sweet LVO data related to the table form that talked about the terrain at the event and the post-event survey.
Awesome.
Nice.
But before we get into that, let's go ahead and get some news done. What do we got in the world of Star Wars?
World of Star Wars media. Well, starting off with a little bit of a downer. Jedi Survivor, which looks awesome, by the way.
Yeah.
I know I sent you the video that IGN did. Unfortunately, it got delayed 6 weeks. So it was supposed to be out March 17th. They pushed it back to April 28th.
At least it's not 6 months.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm glad that they're at least just pushing it back instead of having the dev team just crunch.
Right.
It's kind of been a known thing in the video game industry that they're just push dev teams super hard and make them work, like 20-hour days and everything. So if that's what they're doing, and hopefully they're not making them crunch during this extra period, but yeah, better a delayed game that's great than a rushed out game that's not good. So I just mentioned IGN released a 9-minute video of gameplay. I don't know if you had a chance to watch it.
No, I haven't yet.
Oh, it looks amazing.
Yeah.
There's still a little couple graphical things. I saw BD1 riding on his back, twitching a little bit when he was trying to do some maneuvers.
Yeah. That's a character quirk that he's developed.
Yeah. But lots of, I don't know what previews you guys have seen, but there's a lot of Clone Wars droids running around. It was good to hear the Roger Rogers again.
Nice.
Yeah.
You would like that. Actually, I would like that. We'd all like that.
The tie-in novel, The Jedi Battle Scars, though, has not been delayed. It's still coming out on March 7th. Okay. And I've got it in my Audible pre-orders, so I'm looking forward to that.
Cool. Did you read the previous novel for it?
To my knowledge, there wasn't a novel for the Jedi series yet.
You would think, but... Yeah. Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
Sailing on.
Visions Volume 2 got its release date, and as everyone expected, it's May the 4th.
Makes sense.
Actually, now looking back at the Jedi Survivor, that's April 28th. Why didn't they just delay it like another week to May the 4th? I guess there was too much going on at the same time.
We don't want to get lost in the chatter, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. You guys excited for that one?
For Visions?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's 9 episodes. They're all dropping at the same time.
I feel like I think it was last time that I had talked about it was on Outriders specifically. I think we had talked about it on the show like way back, and
Yeah.
I the best advice that was given to me or that I had heard about it was just to not binge them, and is to try to like watch each one on like a separate night and watch them in a row that way, because then they seem to flow a little bit better, whereas like it just seemed like it was like jumping from one lightsaber fight to the next in a way.
Right.
And like if so like I plan to wait, have it all come out, assuming it's not all coming out at one time. If it does, even easier. And spread it out, watch them one at a time. And I felt like that immensely like increased my personal enjoyment of Visions the first time. I thought there's just so many like great little things that like I could pick out of those from like an art perspective or a
Sure.
production perspective or whatever, that like yeah, it definitely made it worth watching, and I think I will definitely be watching the next run.
Oh yeah, and all 9 episodes are dropping on the same day.
Oh really?
So
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
do portion
So you
out.
can
I'll
watch
spread
them all
them
at
out.
once, but I don't recommend it. I would spread them out
Yeah.
if I were the listener at home.
Yeah.
Because, well, I know for the first series, when I was watching it, there was some really good ones, and then they hit a dud, and I was like, oh, I just killed all momentum for it. So, yes, spacing them out each night makes sense to me. I will be doing that.
Well, and the other change they did with Volume 2 here, it's not just Japanese studios. It's full international this time.
Oh, really?
So for the 9 different, each episode is done by a different studio, just like last time. But the studios are from Spain, Ireland, Chile, the UK, South Korea, France, India, one from Japan, and South Africa. So
South Africa?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's going to be a lot of interesting variety this time around.
Wow. Yeah, that should be. I'm curious to see all the different styles from the different countries there.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. What about some Legion news? We have anything there?
Yeah, well, we got tons of Legion news.
All right, let's talk about some Legion news then.
Well, we had an event coming that we were contacted
Ah,
about, right?
yes.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and get that done. So Matthew Gergley reached out to us to let us know that he's going to be running a Legion event at Motor City Mayhem in Detroit. That will be the same weekend. It's Memorial Weekend, so May 27th through the 28th. Same weekend as Rocky Top GameCon and Bay Area Open. So if you're a Great Lakes area guy, head on over. There's information he's posted up in the Discord for upcoming events, so go check that out.
Nice. So you have Rocky Top, Bay Area, and Motor City kind of all bracketing the country.
It's a super Legion weekend covering the nation.
Wow.
That's great. I mean, I feel like it was the same thing last year. There was like 3 big but also spaced out events that were all happening at the same time. At least 2, because Rocky Top and at the time KublaCon, but now it's Bay Area Open, did the same thing. So that's neat. I mean, I think like it's great to have the big events that people want to fly to and stuff, but also like not everybody can do that. Some people want to just drive, or they're more local. So like it's great that there are a couple weekends out there that seem to cater to a lot of people. That's always good to hear. And I mean, more events, more better. I mean, you really cannot go wrong with more stuff. So love to hear it.
I would like to see it's Legion from sea to shining sea, but it's from sea to shining Great Lake.
Yeah.
Shining Rust Belt.
Shining prison they hold Rocky Top in? I don't know.
No.
No, Ryan wears that badge with pride. Don't act like it's a jab, because it's not. They love their prison Legion.
Is it a warden badge or?
Yes, it says consular on it now.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Consular. All right.
Oh, well, speaking of Legion events, since the next LVO is in 349 days.
There it is.
Ah.
Okay. Thank you, Dan.
But before we get into the next LVO,
I'm going to hold on to this episode for 2 extra days just so that's wrong.
Just so it's
they've always been as of time of recording.
Yeah,
so I've been consistent on that.
I'm going to go back in time and release it early.
So yes, like you mentioned earlier, LJ, there was a feedback form and a table feedback form for all the events over at LVO.
Indeed. So we used 2 different tools. I definitely am wary of over surveying people. There's already a lot of email, a lot of contact, a lot of stuff that went into getting people there and getting people signed up and registered and all that. So we're always hesitant to add like one more thing, But with the rule book dropping, a couple weeks before the event,
Mm-hmm.
we wanted to assess because even if the terrain that was used at LVO is not used at the next event you go to, a lot of the people that run events are going to look at this data and use it to help inform some of their choices. And one of the nice things we did that is difficult to do for a larger event, but we definitely wanted to dedicate bandwidth to it, was on Thursday night before we went to dinner, Emily went and she took a nice overhead picture of every single one of the tables, and then that was put into a Google Drive that is public, that anybody could look at. So you could take the table form if I gave you access to it, and you could take the drive, even if I don't, anybody can get to that. And you could take a look at these tables and take a look at the feedback and use that to inform your own table building. And one of the things that I like to get into before I really go into the data is that when we build tables, or at least when I build tables for a big event, we have 4 passes that we do. We have the dump out the terrain on the table pass, the make it look like a Legion table pass. These first 2
Mm-hmm.
can be done by anybody. They can be done by volunteers, they can be done by event staff. It was mostly volunteer this time. Some of the people that helped were actually the people that made the terrain, because Rad's Game Shop, who did 25 tables for us before the event, 3 of their people came out and they actually helped set up the terrain that had been shipped across the country, which was awesome. But anyway, those are the first 2 passes, and then the third pass is only done by judges, and then the fourth pass is either the head judge or the TO. And so we break it down into those 4 steps. And what I wanted to do was, by the time we got to the last step, by the time we got to me, basically, I wanted a couple different layouts that were same, but different. So I have in my head, and I'm going to try to illustrate this the best as possible because this is not a visual format. You have layout A, layout B, layout C. Layout A is more LOS blocker building focused, so think a traditional city layout. A traditional city layout is done diagonally from corner to corner of the table, not straight across it horizontally or vertically. It's done diagonally. If you want to build a city table, build it diagonally. Then you have a more open table, where you have less LOS blockers, more centered around the ring outside of the table, something traditionally we know is not as impactful, but has become a little more useful with more battle cards coming in the game, or deployment cards specifically. And then the last is a mix. We try to make something that doesn't quite resemble a StarCraft table, but something that is, and StarCraft, those maps, if you're not familiar with the game, are very mirrored. We try to have something that is a little more balanced. We feel like the line of sight blockers, the area terrain, the scattered terrain has been neatly, broken up between 2 players that are playing major offensive. If you build a table canted towards major offensive, it helps capture a lot of the different deployment types without even having to try. So again, table A, table B, table C. Now, the table pictures are not labeled in this way. Currently, those different formats live inside my head. But if you start to look at the table pictures, you can see those 3 archetypes pop up. You can see, okay, these tables are clearly built around B. They're a little more open in the center, a little more gunliney. Okay, these tables are clearly built around A. If I had a Jedi, I could pop from building to building to building with relative ease. And that was kind of the theory that built the tables from the ground up. There's also a second tool that I use when I build tables, and that is a 2-4-2 rule. For every 8 tables, there's going to be 2 more open, 2 heavier, and 4 balanced tables. So I kind of melded those 2 ideas. The latter I normally do every single event, and the first one was kind of a spur of the moment idea because I wanted to collect some hard data in this new rulebook world. And
Mm-hmm.
so, one of the things, and the reason why I introduce it this way, one of the things I noticed was that the table feedback, generally speaking, the feedback stuck to either A, B, or C. Before I even looked at the picture that this person was talking about, I could kind of tell if they were talking about A, B, or C. So it's kind of nice to know that that lined up with my expectations, because then I could take the feedback and go, okay, I still like this type of table. I think, a more open table is fine to have in the mix. It just shouldn't be your standard. So, what are some good bits of feedback that I got about a more open table that was something that I could take and relay to future table builders? Same thing with the balanced table, same thing with the more crowded table. So, there were a couple different nuggets that I wanted to that I was looking for, stuff like the middle of the board had no line of sight blocking. Or the middle of the board, there was the opposite comment. The middle of the board had no line of sight. You could not see through the center. And, there were certain keywords or buzzwords like that that I was looking for that didn't seem to bug people at all. And one of the things that I know happened because I talked to people and they were like, oh, yeah, I did this. A lot of people submitted table feedback because they didn't like the table.
Sure.
Which makes sense, right?
Yeah.
You're more likely to fill out a survey if you had something to say about the table, and if you were perfectly fine with the table, you probably walked away and didn't fill out the survey. There was about 125 so responses from the table surveys, so it gave me kind of a good sense of some of these layouts. If you were looking for one table to get roasted in particular, that might have happened, but not every single table had survey on it. And generally speaking, I find the absence of information to be okay information within itself.
Yeah. If nobody's complaining about it, then it's probably all right.
Yeah. And so one of the things that I think we have to keep in mind as we move forward is, let's call these points that I learned. Point number one that I learned after LVO and looking at the table form, the game is more lethal than it's been in the past. And building tables moving forward, you definitely have to keep those deployment zones in mind and make sure that there is some sort of line of sight blocking piece that is either directly blocking the deployment zone or that by way of deployment is going to block the deployment zone, because maybe you have a large object in the middle of the table. Large object in the middle of the table did not get any negative feedback because now you can climb those things.
Yeah.
If I would have put a large object in middle of table, I would have gotten destroyed for it as an event planner because everybody knows you didn't do that because you were screwing over armies that didn't bring jump or whatever. Now that you can climb on stuff a lot easier, that was something I was looking for that actually popped up a lot less or not at all than I thought it was going to. So that was super cool. There was a positive and a negative that I learned from those two things. And that was that now you can get away with that. Now, one of the things I want to caution people about is that if you do a large centerpiece, that you want to make sure visually it is easy to subdivide, because players do not instinctively subdivide terrain into different parts, and the rules allow for that, and you should. A good example is that that imperial terrain circular dais temple piece. You guys know the one I'm talking about, where it's like a circle and there's steps going up to it, and then it's got different like statue or bricks around the outside. They're not always there, but on some tables
they're like fins or blades coming up out of them.
Fins, yeah, that's a good word for it. For some people, there's not an intuitive way to break that up. And I've seen a lot of people come up with great ways to break that piece up. That's not a good example of a climbable piece, but that's the first thing that comes to mind as something that's difficult to subdivide. So the lesson I want to take away from that is, if we're going to put a large piece in the center, which I think is totally fine now, given the changes to the game, that you want to make sure it's something that the players can visually subdivide between the parts. And that might be because the parts are physically different, or you can physically take it apart, or maybe it's painted to show, divisions in the terrain. So that was a really, really, really good one that I pulled out of the feedback form. There were some people that are actually asking for more dynamic centerpieces too, which I thought was really cool. Like, that was one that I was surprised to see. One of the things that sometimes you just got to live with it, because I don't necessarily control every single piece of terrain that people send to me or that we get. there were some comments about fiddly pieces. This table had a ladder on it, and the ladders are things that are placed against the ground and a piece of terrain, which means that sometimes my trooper can fit under there nicely and walk under. Sometimes if I bump it, then my Dupac can suddenly fit under because it can be moved. And all terrain on a Legion board can be moved. It's not like MCP where we're chucking terrain at each other, but at the same time, you want to be careful with those more fiddly things that are not glued down, and ladders were a really good example because ladders in the old rules enabled people's brains to be like, climb without taking the clamber damage. This is good. I will use it this way. So there were a lot of those objects out there because they worked better with the old rules than they do with the new rules. Now with the new rules, obviously, it's more of like let's call it a visual cue, and it's less necessary because it doesn't have a game effect anymore. The players could still give it a game effect because the players define the terrain as they see fit and should have the freedom to come up with cool stuff like that. Maybe if there's a ladder on the west side of the building, you can climb at speed 2 instead of speed 1. Like, I think there's ways the players could be imaginative on their home table to make a piece of terrain work. When you're in a competitive setting, those fiddly bits are something that we need to, make sure we move away from. So that was another good one that I was interested in. Somebody said that there was too much height 2 terrain, which I thought was kind of interesting, considering there were some public opinion people, pundits was the word I was looking for, that was like, well, the terrain inventory didn't use the height 2, a lot of the height 2 rules, and I was like, great. I did not change 75 tables in time. I'm sorry. And so, I thought it was funny that somebody mentioned that there was one table that had too much height too. So, that's one where it's like, okay, cool. Is that theme just going to stay? And in the 2-4-2 rule, that's going to be one of my extremes one way or the other? Or is that a table that in the future we're going to maybe break up? Because one of the things I tried to do to make building the inventory earlier easier is we tried to get one specific type of thing and then another specific type of thing or set and then smash them together. So we bought a million rocks from Terrain's 4 games, and then we bought Tuscan huts and Legion or Star Wars looking buildings and craft spaceships and put them on the Terrains for game stuff because we were able to then make 4 tables out of a very little amount of stuff. So if it's a terrain type that is maybe replicated too many times on a table, that's great because we just take that table, we break it in half, and we add a little bit more. For some of these tables that are truly too dense, because there are a couple that stick out. There was a Tatooine table that I could probably make 4 tables out of the buildings that come in that set. This is also an opportunity for us to take that and just add a little bit more, but now we've got 3 tables instead of 1 table. And that was one of the useful parts of the table feedback.
Nice.
I mean, Dan, you played. Was there any ones that in particular that still stick out in your head? And no, you can't mention the starport because we know that was yours.
Since you didn't fill out the survey, Dan, we need to know.
But was there anything?
I should have filled out a survey on my own table. Yeah, damn it.
Just from being there, and Dan doesn't know I was going to ask him these questions. So if you need a second to ruminate, take it. But I mean, do any of these themes or broad overall approaches that I'm talking about, did you recognize any of these patterns, or was there any tables that you want to mention for either good reasons or bad that you want to talk about from being a player at the event?
There was only one table that both me and my opponent had an issue with. It was during the unconventional warfare. There was one table that was mostly just scatter terrain, and the table next to us wasn't being used, so we just flagged a judge and said, hey, can we move over 1 table?
Can we move over 1? Nice.
Can we move over 1? And the judge said, yeah, and he adjusted us in Game Uplink and then said, hey, make sure you do a feedback on that bad table.
And then you didn't.
CJ, did you do that? Because
Dan did not. I mean, generally speaking, we could probably go find it pretty quick on the album, and then I could check to see if somebody submitted it. But I will say you reminded me of a very important point. I had a great discussion with Kyle after he played on the junkyard table. I took an awesome candid photo of him and his opponent where they both looked like they were, I don't know, like they had played 5 games or 6 games of Legion at that point.
That's weird.
And yeah, I know, right? And one of the great discussions we had was around the scatter and like obstacle terrain that you can throw around your board. Scatter terrain is what it's best known as. Um, One of the big lessons that I took away, and we're going to keep in mind when we order scatter terrain in the future, is that having a really good footprint that encapsulates the entire piece of terrain was very helpful for the scatter pieces, because sometimes with terrain it overhangs the base of the piece, let's call it. Think of like a crashed X-wing where the wing is sticking out at an odd angle. Because of the way units are blocked now, because you're looking at any part of the silhouette instead of that center line, you can get kind of awkward situations where it's not very clear that your defender has cover until you go and you do the check and you get down on the table edge. And what sped up some people's games on a certain group of tables, where it was kind of like my focus group for this idea, was the fact that every piece of scatter was very neatly footprinted. And on the tables that had the very neatly footprinted terrain, and specifically I'm talking about there was 2 junkyard tables, there was way more open shots on those tables, not because of the density of the terrain. The overall density was still to the like 30-35% range that we've come to know and love as a good table. But you're able to get more open shots with that clear, defined footprint, because even if a little teeny bit is sticking over, the players can be like, hey, the footprint is the footprint is the footprint.
Right.
That's what we're going to use to determine if line of sight is blocked or not. And you don't have to play, it's not like you're playing everything as area, but like functionally speaking, that's kind of what it looked like for a lot of people that were used to the old system. And so that's something I'm going to keep in mind too when we start to order more scatter terrain to fill out tables, is that I think a good footprint is going to be really, really important moving forward, because it'll speed up player discussions.
So
And
I think the one example you showed me when you were talking to me at the event about this was there were some trees, and that's kind of the obvious extreme example most people are giving about the new cover rules is a tree root going across the ground, just because my guy standing behind it, gets cover. But if you put, say, a disc underneath the tree to the edges of the root and make that area terrain, that makes it much more easy to define.
Right, and those tree discs were very plain. They were not like super hobbied, but even though Legion terrain loves to visually be awesome and blow people out of the water with its theme, I think in a competitive environment, it's okay to take a leap of or maybe not a degradation, but the leap is the first word that came to mind, and go down a little bit in visual appeal to speed up gameplay. And I
Suspension of
think
disbelief.
Right, and I think those bases were really good. I come from, cutting up a piece of felt and throwing it on the board, and that's my area terrain kind of days. That's what I grew up with, being in college and trying to play 40K in the library of our dorm. The little common area or whatever, we would grab books off the shelves, throw felt on the table, and whatever other side items I wanted to grab and use that as terrain. I think it's very okay. And what I don't want the reason why I bring this up is because I don't want people to see these tables at these events, what Nick does and what we've done and whatever, there's some awesome events overseas have done. I don't want you to dissuade from bringing some simplicity in to assist with gameplay, is really what we're trying to get to here. That's a big one.
Yeah. So instead of like a pile of boxes on a pallet.
Yep. That's a super
Yeah.
common piece of
Yeah.
printed terrain that's been out there for a while, right? Is those Imperial terrain palettes that have the boxes stacked up on them, but also they're on a neat little piece of sheet metal. Cool footprint, easy. It helps speed up gameplay, and that's a big one that we got a lot of feedback on. I monitored those tables specifically while people were playing their games, and the comment came up almost every game that I talked to people about. So that was super big.
And also, they
They
look good.
I was gonna say I should have done this at the beginning, but the way the form is worded is what day of the LVO is it? Which there were some funny responses to that. I got January 16th, 1986, which is weird because
it's the
the
retro
tournament didn't
synthwave
happen on the
LVO.
16th or the 1986 year.
That's where they put their birthday in accidentally, I guess.
I guess.
Bum, bum, ba-da-dum, bum, bum, bum.
And then what table did you play on so we could identify where you were? And then the big three questions were how would you rate the theme? Did it look nice? How would you rate the playability? Did it allow for an enjoyable game of Legion? How would you rate the functionality? Did it allow you to play the game? And then those were mandatory. And then the last question was, did you have any feedback for the table? That was optional. There was only about 90 people that left comments, and then over 120 that rated tables in total. The broad strokes for the three poll questions. For the theme of the table, we had 0 people give it a 1 out of 5. 7
Nice.
people give it a 2, 11 give it a 3, and then 52 and 54 for 4 and 5 respectively. So absolute majority, 84%, were the theme was either 4 or 5 out of 5. Great.
Yeah,
Absolutely,
but it's still
what we
good
wanna
that
shoot
you're
for.
also identifying possible problem areas, so you can
and
bump those numbers up next time.
That led me to one of the funnier comments that was on the survey, which was this table looked like it came out of Harry Potter. And I want to tell that person,
I know which table that is.
yeah, there's cottage type and castle type things on it. I know. But
not like where Luke lived or any of the other places. No cottages in Star Wars.
Exactly, and no screws either. I hear that's a thing I should avoid in the Star Wars universe. Anyway,
Right.
playability was a little more varied, but also still overall positive. Most results were 4 out of 5. That was 40% or so. So the playability was great. And then there was 9 people that gave it a 1. 14 people that gave it a 2, 23 people that gave it a 3. So again, you could see that one looked like a more traditional bell curve, but with it was weighed towards 4 and 5 respectively again. And then functionality looked like a normal bell curve, but 1 was like 2 people rated a table as not functional, and then 4 and 5 were once again like a really, really big majority. But that one looks like a normal bell curve. 3 and 5 are like balanced. 4 is really high, and then 2 and 1 are like almost non-existent. So that overall, to me, like the theme part is great because for the last 4 years at LVO, we've been selling a product. You know, we have people that come in our hall and look at our game and then go on to immediately go play our game. That become new players for this community. So the fact that theme is unanimously fantastic, and that out of 124 results, 18 of them were less than a 4 out of 5. That's fantastic. But functionality, that was one of the ones that I think I was personally kind of weighing heavier than the others. And overall, again, there's 18 results that are a 2 or a 1, which I would consider to be bad. And then the rest of the results are either fine or good. So I was really happy with that. And I think overall, I was genuinely surprised that the tables looked as good as they did. And I know that that's not necessarily something you want your TO to say, but I had not seen like 30 something of these tables in person myself. I had gotten lots of pictures, I had talked to people about them, we had had conversations, so it's not like I didn't know what I was getting. But seeing a table in person is not the same as seeing somebody's phone picture or whatever.
Who,
So,
who hurt you, LJ? How come you don't
uh,
have the ability to trust?
oh, so many people.
Wow. Oh,
Wow.
I'm listening.
Yes, this is going to turn into an LJ therapy session before long. Um, but no, like I was just, when everything was laid out that Thursday afternoon and the tables were like up and I was doing my final pass, my confidence absolutely skyrocketed. And I was like, this event looks great. And I was really happy. And then, players started playing and the feedback in person started rolling in, which again, the feedback I got in person, I assumed was going to be positive compared to the feedback on the forum. I assumed that was going to be negative. And all throughout the weekend, this all looks great. There's not a bad table here. Okay, there's one table that I wouldn't want to play on, but it looks good. Or this table, you know, lacked in theme, but clearly is playable. And like that absolutely blew me away. Like that was such a good feeling because, you guys know, because you were there last year, I took a picture of the 18 or so boxes of terrain that we put away at LVO 2022. And
Yeah.
we went from 18 tables to 65 tables in the frontline inventory, plus the 10 that Vegas locals brought. So it was a big leap.
Yeah.
We grew a
Yeah.
lot this last year. So it was really cool to see it all come together in person. Um, like I said, the feedback overall was what I expected. For the tables that were designed to be a little bit more open, the feedback was, hey, this needs more LOS blockers or change the position of LOS blockers. Great. That's perfect because that's what those tables were meant to assess. And there were even some people that said, hey, in the old rules, this would have been a bad table, but under new rules, this is great. And that's what I was really trying to
Oh.
get
So you get a
from
pass
those
this time.
tables. So I did. My experiment paid off in that regard. For the, like I said, the tables that were heavier or maybe had a center dominated area, those tables did not receive the negative feedback than I thought they would because I think again new rules lended themselves to playing on those tables. So that was really cool and super valuable for me. And then, the balance tables that, at least I thought was balanced, a lot of times the feedback was more, hey, this specific piece could be more playable, or maybe you should bring more of this type of terrain to this table. People are always going to want more line of sight blockers, especially if they happen to bring a Jedi or a close combat army. People are always going to want more area terrain, because we love area terrain. Area terrain is great. I think LOS came up on, I would say, a good 80% of surveys. The person submitting the feedback used LOS somewhere in their feedback. So,
Mm-hmm.
and not to say that it was lacking, because on some tables the feedback was it had enough LOS, or the feedback was I like the position of the LOS. But seeing that come up so much, definitely that's something that draws my eye right in. Another thing that like you can glean from that is, you know, maybe the positions of the LOS blocking need to change if LOS is coming up on your form over and over and over again. So that again, definitely something that we can consider looking at for next time. That was a
Nice.
lot.
Nice. So
What are your questions?
But there is a whole lot of comments to go
Uh,
through. So no, that sounds
I'm
fantastic.
gonna have to ask you to send me on the side any reviews of the Star Tour stable.
Yes, I will find specific reviews if there's somebody that was like, "Hey, I brought this or I made this," and we can find the table number. I will definitely I can give you that feedback if there was any for your specific table, and that goes to anybody listening. That's not necessarily just for Dan
Well, it's
because
basically just the 10 Vegas locals, right?
yeah, well,
Because
there. I mean, honestly, we're gonna give some of the feedback back to the Rads Game Shop guys too,
oh,
because
sure.
like I
Oh, yeah.
said, they
That's a good point.
made what was it? They made 25 tables for us. So that was, they definitely want to take that feedback to improve their product too. So we will definitely be passing out that feedback like candy. Um, I know John Griffin, who's the TO for Worlds, he already has this form. And there are a couple other TOs for events that are coming up, especially the frontline TOs, because they're the ones that are primarily going to be using this inventory moving forward. They will immediately be able to get access to that, so they can use the inventory. And that's one of the other cool things about the frontline inventory. I know I've mentioned it a ton before. If you're somebody that's new or you've never heard me talk about that, basically we have 65 tables that now go from each frontline event to each frontline event. So you can expect a certain standard of terrain at those events. And at a minimum, that stuff is the quality of terrain that you can expect at the events that you go to for frontline gaming. And the next step of that inventory is not only do we have a shared sheet where if the players want to, you can join the TO Discord and you can look at the inventory yourself. We took those pictures so Emily can take the picture, and when you click on the name of the table in the frontline inventory, it will show you that picture from LVO. So not only do you have a sheet that says put the mat here, put this mat here, put this mat here. Also, Matt, you put that mat here. You can also click on the table and see a potential layout. So that way you don't have to start from scratch if you don't want to.
Awesome.
Nice.
That's
So-
huge, man. Yeah, the inventory is just getting better and better. We're getting some good feedback there for the tables going forward. So many people are going to be able to benefit beyond, this one event. But speaking of this one event, so there's going to be a shakeup for next year. You have
There
some news
is
for us
gonna
on that one,
be-
LJ?
Yes, there is going to be a shakeup. We have a new TO that is entering the ring, because in theory,
Because LJ's
I will
getting
be-
fired.
I will be outside of the country at the time of the next LVO.
Fleeing the government.
I'm literally fleeing this country to
Yeah.
not have to do it again, because I decided that 5 was too many. The 2024 event will be not the 5th in a row because of the COVID year, but the 5th Legion LVO event.
2024 is like 5 years from now?
Yes, that's
Wait,
definitely
oh my
how the
God,
math I
that's
just
next
said
year.
works.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I said
we'll
it
have
earlier,
a new
349 days.
yeah. We'll have a new TO, Jordan, who Luminous Gaming, Bear Chemist on the Legion Discord. He is a Florida native who runs big events on their side. He's been running a ton of things over in the Florida area and has the Crucible coming up in, I believe it is September, that he's running in the Florida area. Super
cool.
competent TO, somebody who is a great staff manager, which is kind of what you need to be to lead an LVO. It's less of a you thing, and it's more of a, hey, this is a product that a group of people puts on, and you need to be able to manage that group of people to be successful. So I feel very confident that he can do that. But he will be running the next LVO. And I will not be, because
Hooray.
again, in theory, I will be gone. I'm glad you said hooray when I said that. That's funny.
Hooray. You got to put a positive spin on it, man.
You do. I mean, there will be, honestly, again, the TO for LVO at this point does not matter because it is a staff product. It is
Oh,
not a
okay.
single.
Well, that's good.
It is not a single
Jordan,
person.
Jordan, if you're listening,
Jordan, you don't matter. I've already said it
Luminous,
on
you
the
don't
mic.
matter. Right. Okay. That's the takeaway here.
It's not, because it's not one person anymore. It's a team. It really, really, really is a team. There are so many things now that have become teams that I got to start. Invader League, the Facebook group, the Legion Discord staff itself, LVO, even the frontline events themselves. They're all teams that have grown organically and are now self-sufficient. And so I think that he is the kind of person that will do a good job replacing me. But I think at the same time, like for people who might be worried about a change in quality or whatever, I do leave things consistently because it gets new ideas in there, and almost everything has gotten better because of that. I don't think I necessarily hold any of these teams back, but at the same time, if you're the same person doing the same things, the same, year after year, it's never improving. It's never going anywhere. It's never growing. And so this is a great opportunity to
You got to
like
spice it up a
prune.
little.
Yeah, you prune the process a little bit. You get new views and a new take on things, and the event gets better because of it. I absolutely believe that, and that's the way that I build teams, and I have for the last 10 years or
Yeah.
so. And I'm really, really, really excited to see what he does with it. And he's somebody that has been really active trying to help me manage and grow the TO Discord. And so I think he's already kind of got the good mindset for it, on top of already being a great TO in his own right. One of the first things I did after we collected responses was for the event survey, which was the other survey that I definitely don't have as much to say about before Matt's eyes glaze over there. um, is that there was definitely some feedback that I think he's immediately going to be applying to next year.
Okay.
Um, a lot of the feedback on the event forum was, you guys did great. I'm not going to go through everything like I did with terrain. It was, you guys did good, keep doing what you're doing. My
Oh, that's
favorite
nice.
question was, overall, how satisfied were you in the Legion events at the Las Vegas Open? Nobody rated it a 1. Nobody rated it a 2, 3, or 4. We had 1 5, 1 6, and everybody else was 7, 8. The majority was 9, and then the rest were 10. So the fact that
Beautiful.
there was no bell curve, it was just a rising slope to greatness. Made me really happy. It's really gratifying after an event to see that. Um, and the people that gave their feedback on this form was really, again, positive. The team is great. The judges are great. The prizes are great. Like it's honestly, like, there's a lot of really positive feedback that after you're done running an event and you're drained, you've been clenched for 10 months waiting for this moment to happen, and it finally comes over, and it's like, man, that's why you do it right there. Like, there's a lot that
Nice.
you see that, and it makes you want to do this again. The things
Awesome.
that we can take away that are actually actionable was, the players want 2 days of Swiss. They want 6 rounds, 2 days. They don't want a Friday event and a Saturday event anymore. They just want to play a bunch of games of
Yeah.
Legion. And I think now that we're at this post 128 player size of event, I think we're absolutely ready to embrace that style of event. I think
Mm.
before we did it because we were still growing the event, and honestly, I noticed people that were coming out to the LVO just for the Saturday and Sunday event. They were not coming for the main event. And then because we needed to do cuts and try to get to specific numbers, we did cuts, and we built a format that worked for that system by bringing in side formats like unconventional warfare. I think next year, I don't think we're going to do that. I think if anything, somebody will try to do maybe a side event of spec ops, or
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think we will definitely keep doubles. I'm not going to take doubles away from the people. Doubles is too great,
The people would
especially with
rise
all
up.
the. Yes, especially, I mean, Denver alone would come for me if I got rid of doubles. Especially with all the travel groups and all the people that come to LVO in pairs. Honestly, like, doubles is great because you get to have a fun 2 rounds with your buddy at the end of a weekend and drink some beer and throw some dice. Like, honestly, I could never touch doubles. But I already talked to Jordan about it, and I think he agrees. I think next year we're gonna go for some sort of 6 round 2 day of Swiss event. It might even be 7. It might even be a 3 round day and a 4 round day. But on the four
Mm.
round day, it's only like the top cut plays what's called like a shadow round, if you haven't heard of that before, where only a cut of people play instead of the whole field. It helps make it manageable, and
Mhm.
usually those are very tense games because you're playing to get into the top cut the next day. So I think honestly that we're going to do that. That'll be something that I'd be very surprised if Jordan did not carry that forward into 2024. Um, there were things that are out of my control that are in the post event survey, but we do try to bring those things to frontline because they have changed the LVO over the last 5 years. It is different. It is ran better than it used to be. You could definitely tell if you've been to the first one versus this one that frontline is getting better at running these giant events. Stuff like how far away the food was. things about the the bathrooms or the quality of the physical tables that the terrain is put on. It's like I'm not working with the state of Nevada to get the tables, so unfortunately frontline sources what frontline sources, and they had like 1,000 people playing Warhammer in the other rooms, so they were working with what they got, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
There were a couple other things as far as like seeding that I thought was kind of interesting. I feel like last year I did like a Vegas style March Madness thing on Sunday, 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7, 3 versus
Right.
6, that
Yeah.
kind of thing. And I actually got a lot of negative feedback about that when I did that, because people knew who they were going to play and they thought that wasn't as fun. And then this year somebody said but they liked it that way, they wanted it that way. So that'll be something I think it'll be interesting for Jordan to chew on, and decide if he wants to implement in the tournament. There was also some feedback about game uplink. The servers were stressed when we drew that first round, and you had people that were
Right.
talking to each other to try to see their matches. But that's more of like, hey, this was Game Uplink's first time doing such a big event thing, and then the team fixed it during the event. Like Nima called back to HQ and was like, hey, we got to fix this, and it was fixed before round one was even over. So there was definitely some things that like were immediately addressed, or the person who submitted the comment just kind of missed. Somebody also brought up that they got to buy during the doubles tournament. It's like I can't. It's hard to
Can
have
you
like a
not
team on
materialize an
standby,
extra team?
right?
Yeah.
And so like, and again, like I appreciate the person for submitting feedback because it's better than not. But like there is like I also want to make clear that like there's some feedback that's very hard to act on because of constraints that are real life or outside of my control. But just to circle back, we again had a lot of great feedback from people that were happy and generally speaking enjoyed the event. A couple actionable items that I think you're going to see next year, and of course many question marks that we can laugh about in person as a judge crew and move on with our life. My favorite response to the post event survey was somebody that simply said, I wish I was better at the game. And for that
Sure,
person,
we all do.
I
Wait, that
salute
that got
you.
sent in? I didn't even play.
You
Yeah.
you did it. You made me laugh. Somebody also said more Canadian games question mark, which sure, so
What, like
like
hockey?
again, yeah, there
Curling?
was some
Curling?
funny stuff that made me laugh. And again, there was a couple more questions on the forum, but the general theme was that people were overall happy with the format, the number of games, the staff, even with the comments I mentioned earlier. um, Again, it was on a 5-point system, and there was like 10 different questions that we asked. Every single one of them except one, 5 was the highest, and on most it wasn't even close. So again, a lot of fantastic feedback. People were very overall satisfied with the event. I think that's been mirrored or echoed enough in people's podcasts and blogs and other comments that people have made out there. But overall, like I want to mention that the feedback was fantastically positive. And the other thing I like to mention is that there were a lot of people that were very positive about the staff members and made sure to say something nice about the people that helped me run the event. The judges, the desk staff like yourself, Matt, and the people that the people noticed how much help we had on Thursday too, and how quickly the event went up and how efficiently it went down on Sunday. And that feedback is awesome because the staff deserves all the accolades for doing what they do to make this event happen for me.
Yeah, I no joke. I was tearing down a few tables on Sunday, and I had people playing at the table, still playing games at the tables next to me, and actually saying, "Great event, Dan. Thanks for setting everything up." I'm like, "Oh."
I remember one guy walked up to me and said, "Hey, move, you're in my way." I was like, "Thanks, man." Wow, that's very nice.
That was me.
Oh, that was you. Damn it! Wow,
You were in
dude.
a haze, Matt. It was a long couple of days. I get it.
Yeah, it sure was.
So,
But anyways,
we're
thank you
gonna-
everybody that filled out
Yes.
information with those surveys. It's always useful. Obviously, we got some great data out of that. But we're going to take a short break, and we're going to come back to talk about some special operations and some other Legion-related news. Be right back, guys. Hey guys, Matt here to tell you about our friends over at 6UP Supply. If you're like me and don't have access to your own 3D printers, 6UP Supply has you covered with a whole suite of printing services to bring those awesome files to life. The Outriders are proud to be partnered with 6UP, and you could find special themed terrain, gear, and tokens with a big discount for Patreon members in the Outrider Central section of the website. And that's not all. You can also get terrain bases, game supplies, tools, LED kits, and more. Stuff is being added all the time. So stop by the number 6upsupply.com and use coupon code OUTRIDER to save 10% on your next order, and let them help you up your game.
You are receiving the Legion Outriders podcast. Ending the transmission now would be most unfortunate. And now, the Outriders.
Welcome back, Outriders. Matt, Dan, and LJ back with you, and we've got, well, some special operations to talk about.
Oh, yes.
One of the benefits, so we recorded the previous episode, number 149, and then I think the next day they dropped.
It was a couple days after, but
it was
still.
2 days, I think. Yeah, I think we recorded on Saturday, and it came out on Monday. Or something.
You guys
Wednesday.
definitely had like home field advantage on that one, because I assume you got home and were tired and immediately fell asleep Sunday night, and then drugged yourself out of bed and immediately rolled into the recording room.
That's what it was.
Because you guys were quick on Monday or Tuesday getting that episode out, because Spec Ops came out on Wednesday, and I'm pretty sure your guys' episode came out like the night before. So you guys were on it, and all the other podcasts started releasing LVO episodes in the middle of Spec Ops coming out.
And missed, that just by just a little bit, but that's fine.
Definitely the tempo and tone of the last episode was a bit lower because we were still recovering.
But we wanted to get it out while it was fresh, you know?
Oh, it was good because you could tell the comments were very fresh, but I thought it was nice because then you had your pre or post LVO episode. Now you have your post LVO episode.
The after party.
And, you had a good little in between there where you got to talk about Spec Ops or special operations.
I am in love with this game mode,
dude. So Dan's gotten to play it 3 times. You played it twice on the Saturday.
Yeah, the Saturday after the
after
weekend
they
that
announced it. Then we got a game in 2 nights ago.
Yep, a couple nights ago.
And that was my first exposure to it. And I'm right there with you, man. It is fantastic. For a beta, which is a really interesting thing that's coming out. LJ, have you gotten to play it yet?
I have gotten to touch it just a little bit. Roger, my dudes.
Oh, you're playing your B1?
Of course, yeah, that army is...
No Shadow Collective at this time, though I did see a comment today that you should consider playing the Mando squad, or Mandos as arcs, and just play the Gar squad, but with the Mando models, and I thought that was lovely.
That's a great idea. Because that's actually the squad I played,
Yeah, and there may be a box of arcs that are currently under construction on my workbench right now for that squad.
But I love the Roger squad. Being able to just chuck bodies on the table and go to town is super fun. I had looked at Kill Team when I restarted 40K with 9th edition, and was super lambasted by people for playing the only miniatures I had at the time, which was Custodes, because Custodes were super broken when the new Kill Team came out, because they could basically do more actions per miniature than everybody else, and so they were too good, too survivable, too many actions, and they were just crushing it. And so I went to go play Kill Team to learn how to play it, and somebody was like, "Oh, you're playing Custodes," and then left, and I was like, okay. Good to meet you.
Welcome. Yes, but that's not a problem here.
No.
We've got art troopers instead.
Put me off from the small skirmish experience until I picked up MCP more seriously, and so the fact that the wheel has now come around to now it's Legion time.
It's like poetry.
With, the small skirmish format.
No,
I was gonna
it's not poetry. It's not even a haiku.
He is correct.
Jeez.
The fact that we're now here and we have the small format, I'm chef's kiss, absolutely pleased. And from the perspective that I have of as somebody who contracts for Asmodee and gets to work on stuff, public beta, yes, please. Like, this is great. This is a huge step, and I mean, like, I wouldn't expect it to become the norm for like regular product releases, but to be confident enough in your product to be like, yes, we've messed with this enough that we can now throw it out there to the public and have them start to play it, and have the cojones to collect feedback on a forum is a lot. I mean, that's insane and something they've never done before. Like, this is really cool from a development standpoint. Before we even start talking about how much fun you guys were alluding to on the precast about how much fun you've had with the game mode itself, just as a step forward for AMG, like, as a player, again, huge props I got to give them because I think it's great.
Okay, but real quick, because we kind of glossed over it.
Yeah, let's take a step back.
Yeah, so Special Operations, new game mode that came out. It's using your Legion miniatures, but it's basically taking a small squad of, Commando Steve and his backup dancers coming out. So there's some pre-made forceless, and their models are between like 6 to 12 on
6 to 10.
6 to 10.
Yeah,
That's the biggest one.
Very small.
Okay, and no characters. The characters are the ones, the ones that you make them. So, like we said, that there's the ARC team, there's a B1 team. Dan played an Imperial, actually both Imperial teams.
Yeah, so there's an ISF team and a more traditional officer and entourage kind of team.
But if you want to think about it, it's like each one of those models on this Special Operations team is almost like a unit unto itself, because they're chucking multiple dice. They're not just if they're
independent activations.
Yes, independent activations.
Model,
right.
They take the very basic core of Legion rules, and then they plus it up to make it more interesting for that kind of granular tactical play, where you've still got the order pool. The command cards are kind of redone because they get rid of the whole 2-1 pips, 2-2 pips. There's basically a set command card for each of the different teams.
Well, there's 5 command cards plus standing orders. You get 3 of them for the faction and 2 for the particular team that you're getting.
Nice.
So really.
So it's almost like it reminds me of Song of Ice and Fire, kind of, because that's the way your deck is constructed. That the cards you can play while you're playing the physical game is you have like if I'm playing Lannisters, I have like the Lannister ones that I can use, and then I also have the Tyrion specific ones because I brought Tyrion Lannister as my commander.
That's your commander, right?
Yeah, and I think that's super cool because there's a consistency there across the faction because you know what the standard ones are, but then also that each team has its own feel and spin, and it helps for me. It helps make it easier to keep track of because it's not Rebels is its own army and there's 15 armies. It's like, cool, there's 4 main factions and they each have very easy to understand generic cards, and then each team has a couple specific ones, and that's where the granularity comes in. Again, super love that design angle, and I think that's neat. And like, this is the tip of the iceberg too. This is the very basic stuff, and I feel like there's so many places you could possibly go with this game mode. It's insane.
Yeah. It really is.
I'm going to speculate on the potential squads because I like my job. But
we'll do it for you. Don't worry. We'll go crazy with it.
Speculate the hell out of what squads you want to see,
Ewoks,
and I'll just stare at the screen blankly. Man, Ewoks. We better have Ewoks eventually because I was joking about it with Matt and Dan. My after seeing and now taking pictures of and helping run several events. My wife is ready to collect her own army and is getting into Legion with Ewoks when they come out later this year.
One of us.
So, So she better have a squad to play on Spec Ops because I think seeing a little squad of murder bears run around is going to be great.
And cannibalizing
this will satiate
troops.
I mean, provided these are available, this will satiate everyone who's come out and said, I want a Mando army. I want a Wookiee army.
Hello, hi.
Want,
Oh, yeah, there better be a Wookiee Wookiee team. Oh my God! But as we said, this is the rules are in beta right now, so these aren't finalized by any stretch, and you can go and get them on the Atomic Mass Games.
Entirely print and play.
Yeah, it's all print and play. You can go cut up the cards and go play immediately. The rules, I think it's what, 9 pages, something like that. So
the rules themselves are
Yeah.
like 3 to 4 pages, and then the missions are just fill out the rest of
right.
them.
And there's some really interesting missions because this is played on a 3x3, and we'll talk about the game me and Dan played here in a second. But basically, this is the public beta, and they're going to be taking feedback during all of February, which is, well, we're
This
almost
month.
over,
Yeah.
but yeah. And then they're going to close the feedback review during March, reopen the beta in April. I'm assuming if they make some tweaks that they'll update, the sheets for all that stuff. And then take a second round of feedback, which I think is really cool. Because how much data can you get? Dan, are you actually going to give feedback this time?
Yeah, you better fill out that
Dan.
feedback form.
Come on, Dan. Remind me
the
to
spotlight's
also.
getting kind of hot here.
Yeah.
But no, this has been coming off of LVO, and I even the previous LVOs that we've gone to, I usually took a little break from Legion.
Yeah, we played
And-
board games or something, and it's
I
like,
mean-
no, we're going straight into more Legions.
Yeah,
so.
and then this popped up, and I'm like, every time I try to take a break, you keep pulling me back
just
in.
keep pulling me back. just one more job.
Like a bad thing.
You think about the span of like 30 days or less that the last month has been. And it, in the same 30 days, you had the core rulebook finally pushed out the door, Legion's biggest in-person event ever, and then this new game mode, all back to back to back. I mean, it's a really
Not to
exciting
mention
time to be
perhaps
two
in
other
there.
Thursday
topics
night
we have.
event?
Not to mention the 2 other topics we'll have coming up later in the show.
We got a
So
lot more to
it's
talk
been
about.
a deluge.
But anyways, there's some key differences with this game mode. It's only played over 4 rounds unless you go to overtime, which some people did. So I think it plays quicker.
Oh, it does.
Even though we were reading as we go, it
Yes.
plays quicker, which is really nice. It's small model count, so it's
Feedback
easy
that
for
I've
people to
gotten
get
from
in.
people specifically was that now that and this was somebody that had played like 5 to 10 games that had gotten in a bunch in a row, they were getting it down to like 45 minutes.
Wow,
which is
that's
fantastic for like your local
So
game
that's
night,
X-wing
especially
time
for
for
those
me.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially for those people that like have to like set up at like 6:30 at night and they're kicked out of the store by 9. That kind of time frame, like it can be hard enough to get a standard game of Legion in that time frame as it is. Like the fact that you can fit 3 of those in there and almost run like a mini tournament in the span of a night, like I think that's awesome. Really happy about that.
No, I'm already bugging our local game store manager to say, like, hey, let's do some Spec Ops events, and we're gonna work it into the schedule.
Work
definitely.
on that one with them. But so the print plays out. You can go get it. I guess they're expecting full release by end of the year. I'm assuming if everything goes well.
In the article that they posted, because they did do a transmission on it as well as that. It was mentioned that they want to aim, because the art department's going to need time to get everything together, and then LFL has to rubber stamp everything. So that seems normal time frame.
Art is one of like the more complicated parts of this process, believe it or not. Everybody wants to hyper focus on like play testing and like trying out the miniatures themselves, but honestly, they talked about it on another cast. They had the art director Preston on, and he talked about how long just the model development takes, and art is a big part of that. They start art way early. So the cards and stuff that you're seeing now, there's probably a reason why they don't have the full art on them for distribution yet.
No, which is fair. I mean, and put the paint on it later, but let's get it functional, get it working, iron out the kinks. So it's it's great. Yeah.
But just to kind of illustrate the flow of the game. So Dan and I played up. I was going to play Rebels.
Yes.
And
then you opened your box of models that you brought with you. And
I'm in the process of moving, so most of my game stuff is crated up right now. So I grabbed the crate that I thought all my Rebels were in, and it turns out it was all my CIS and Republic stuff. So I was like, well, I guess I could proxy. And Dan's like, well, I just happen to have the ARC Trooper cards right here, printed out and in sleeves. And I was like, well, that's great. I've got ARC Troopers right here. Perfect. Let's do it.
At that time, I had a box of ARC Troopers on order and in transit to me. So
because that is your one box to start playing Legion solution right now.
Yes, the ARC Trooper our force team. I don't know if there's an official name for these yet. But
I wasn't expecting special forces.
It is the least expensive buy-in because one box literally gets you into that whole army. But most boxes are most forces are 2 to 3 boxes to get in. Yeah. Aside from the tools and dice and tokens and whatnot. But I mean, you're already playing Legion. You already got those. So
yeah. So the breakdown of this force, and there's no like the team is the team. You don't get to play around with that. I don't know if they're going to keep it like that, and they're just doing it for balance sake right now. But I basically had Clone Captain, 2 ARC Troopers with jetpacks, and then 2 regular ARC Troopers, and then another jetpack guy with a sniper rifle. So the DC-15 and something or other. The sniper config.
Yeah.
But six whole dudes looking over at Dan's mean Imperial forces.
Well, there was 8 dudes over here, and of course it was Hero of the Empire Becky, with a entourage of 2 Death Troopers, 3 regular Stormtroopers, a Stormtrooper with the DLT, and a Medbot.
Where do you get off bringing a Medbot?
Well,
with the Empire. Since when do they really care?
All of these lists are super fluffy, and I love that this, like, looking at this list, I'm like, oh, I just get the image from the promotional image that they pass around with Andor of Deidre with the 2 Death Troopers behind her and a bunch of Stormtroopers. Like, it matches that perfectly.
Beautiful. I'm just going to imagine it's a torture droid that just actually happens.
Oh, yeah.
We didn't mention loadouts.
You could absolutely swing it as a torture droid. If you're looking for the theme there.
Yeah, because we didn't mention it, but each force also has loadouts that you pick after the mission is chosen, but before you actually deploy. So you can tweak your abilities in your force before you do it, and one of them is actually give the Medbot 4 red dice in melee.
Wow. Okay, there you go.
I did not select it. But
yeah, all right. Mine was much less. It was like, oh, you could have night vision goggles or nothing. That's fine. Well,
the covert deploy, which I know that was your first time looking at that rule. So
I was like, that was the eye glaze over moment. But I was like, that's fine. We'll figure it out. But what kind of scenario is basically 3 objectives?
Yeah, so we played the 3
what was it called?
Key position-esque.
Yeah.
I forgot the name of the mission already. Dang it.
What is it, LJ? You know everything.
Well, I do not know everything. No. I thank my fellow moderator Seth for remembering how special ops works, because I was toast after LVO, and that man was answering questions like a maniac on the new area of the forum they opened up. No, you've got shifting priorities.
Shifting priorities. That was it.
Down the shields. The codes with an exclamation point.
The codes! They were codes!
And then disabled vehicle, which is there's a caveat to that one that I really like that people have been enjoying.
Yes. Cool. So we played shifting priorities, which is kind of like intercepted transmissions, if everyone's regular with the regular game. But the cool little twist they put on this, every round you roll a die, and depending on that die roll, one of those points could potentially be worth 2.
And man, did it shift priorities.
Yes.
Wow. It made it a very dynamic game. But basically, it was set up diagonally. There was, on your left side, it was that one of the objectives was closer to you. There was one dead in the middle, and then there was one that was closer to your opponent. And one of those 3, depending on which was rolled on a black dice, could give you extra points for it.
And it also sometimes could just be all worth 1 point. So
it was completely
that happened too. On that. So I think I scored 2 points on the first round versus your 1.
Mm-hmm.
Second round, because of the shifting priorities, you scored 2 and I scored 1.
Right.
And then we literally tied every round
after that,
past 4 into the over, because this particular mission says if you're still tied, play 1 more round. We played that round.
We went to the 5th round.
And then still tied.
And then we tied again. And basically, there's actually there's text in there for that situation, and it's basically just throwing their hands up and saying, "Well, forget it. It's a tie. Then you guys tied." So it was a very bloody game. I think I lost my first model, which I was very
Round 2.
concerned about.
Yeah.
I lost 2. Yeah, before you lost any.
Well, thanks to Medbot.
Yeah. I was like, okay,
but
I'm
you
just not
started
gonna...
whittling them away, and by the last round, you had activated me.
Yeah. I got into the spirit of the clone ARC troopers, and every time that captain activated, I would say, "Call me captain," and then I'd start rolling dice at him, and things started dying. It was amazing.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, as somebody who like narrates almost every little thing some of my miniatures do when I'm playing Legion, it definitely made me like weirdly happy to have this game mode come out where I could, name things. Because I will already be like, oh, Trooper Steve, he saved like a mad lad, or you already mentioned Imperial Officer Becky, and like all of these like little bits of character we give to the miniatures in front of us. I mean, it's without a doubt like one of my favorite parts of playing miniature games, period. So I love that we have such an easy reason to do that, and that it totally leans into that because they're not named characters. They're, your elite A-team that you've brought to this mission. So.
Yeah, but it totally got the feel for like the Tartakovsky, Clone Wars, ARC troopers going in their cables, dropping in, just shooting the crap out of things with pistols, and I was like, this is it. That's that feeling.
This is it.
Yeah.
No, it's not just the armies are fluffy. The game modes, the missions. It is one of the strongest Star Wars-esque experiences I've had.
Yeah,
even outside of normal Legions.
I think one of my favorite things was I kept flip-flopping my jetpack troopers between the 2 objectives. Like one would shoot and then jump back to the further objective, and then the guy that was at the further objective would jump up and then shoot the guys that were in the middle, and it would just back and forth. And yeah, it was just because they only had 8 inches because they're pistols. So that first couple of rounds, I was taking the fire.
We didn't quite mention the ranges here are done with a regular tape measure.
Yes, a tape measure. So you've got your standard move templates, but each of the weapon profiles on the cards has
and ability profiles too.
Yeah, and ability profiles. And then there's a couple of key changes, which I actually really like. Cover was a big one. Basically, there's, correct me if I'm wrong here, but it sounds like there's no baked-in surge saves.
No,
for defensive dice.
No currently printed card in the beta has a surge on its surge conversion.
Right.
Card.
So because that is basically your cover saves now. So if you've got light cover, you get 1 surge. If you got heavy, you got 2. And I thought that was pretty cool.
That makes surge tokens super powerful, and arcs were swimming in surge tokens.
They all get surge tokens, and every time they shot, they got a dodge. So
yeah. So that really, I mean, I remember at the beginning of the game, you were a little like, Dan's played this more than me. He's going to roll over me. Yeah. And then towards the end there, it got really sweaty. Like,
honestly, I thought I was going to be able to pull it out there and go for the W, but it was a really action-packed last turn there. But I can't wait for the next game. I want to try out the other lists. I want to start looking at the command cards for the other forces, because as somebody who has a smattering of every force out there, I have the access to just about every team that's been listed so far. So I think the only thing I'm missing is Magna Guards. So
for the CIS. Yeah.
But how have the CIS been performing for you, LJ?
I mean, so far I've just enjoyed being on the other end of the cinematic moment that you described, because I feel like they bring the weight of bodies to the table, which is awesome. Yeah. And you can put a lot of suppression out, and that translates to straight wounds.
Suppression, yes, we didn't talk about that.
Oh god, the suppression was so huge.
Suppression is a big mechanic in Spec Ops. Please talk about how it affected your game.
So, suppression. Yes. So basically, every trooper has their own courage value, and once it meets that courage value, they get suppressed. And that means that when you go to attack, your opponent can pick one of their attack dice that they throw away.
Yes. So you can basically, you as a defender, if the model shooting you is suppressed, meaning equal to its courage value, you get to choose. And of course, that's going to be take the red die like every time.
If they've got a red die, take that on out.
Most pools are very, there's a lot of strata in the pools.
Yeah.
So anyway,
the DC-17s were double rainbow, so red, red, black, black, white, white, and it was fantastic. But if you go beyond that suppression into the panic mode, basically you immediately roll a black die, and for each point you're over, and every hit and a crit turns into an extra wound.
Yeah. So we were actually towards the end there just rolling. Once we calculated, okay, this many hits coming in, this is going to put this much suppression on them. We were rolling the defense die alongside a black die, just all in one
just
pool.
throwing it all in the pool there. So
just
like, okay,
easier
count.
calculate,
because old Call Me Captain there, he's actually got a special ability. He can shoot twice in the same turn, and every crit he rolled adds an extra suppression.
Yeah.
So he was dropping fools, and it felt so good.
He is Captain Fordo, stacking bodies in the name of the Great Army of the Republic.
Yeah.
Love it. That's great. No, I really like hearing about how that mechanic was able to be tweaked to create kind of a different experience, and it's nice that it's not Pierce, but it's a mechanic that acts like it to make sure that there's always a way to put damage out, even if you're not hitting as often as you would like. And I think that's something the droids, especially, I had leaned into when I was building and playing with them, was try to put those hits out to cause those wounds and make weight of fire feel like weight of fire instead of just randomly throwing darts at a wall and seeing if any of them stick. Like, it sometimes feels like playing a B1 gun line.
One funny moment during the game, I think it was around turn 3 or so, and I was sitting there. I don't play Republic very often. It's been actually quite a while, and I was like, wait a second, can I spend a dodge from one of my other guys? They're clones, right?
Oh yeah, the token sharing was just nuts.
So we went and checked. They're like, well, it doesn't say that it doesn't, but then again, it doesn't say that it does.
Well,
so
it does say uses all standard Legion rules except for this list of them.
Right, the exceptions.
Since it didn't list it, so yeah. Clone token sharing is also going to be pretty awesome, and
it was pretty good.
It was
pretty good. And I'm like, sure, the B1s, they've got their programming that they've got to deal with. All that kind of stuff is still in there.
Yeah. So they're all just regular mooks, but all of them have their stats just crazy upturned on there.
These are the special operations troopers. But I really can't recommend it enough. If you guys get a chance, go check it out. You've already got the models. It's a quick read for the rules. You already know most of them.
Yes, and also importantly, there is in the regular Legion Discord 3 channels dedicated to Spec Ops. A general, a rules question, and then a battle reports. And that battle reports section is slowly being filled out. So if you want to watch some people play it too.
Yes, the admins on Legion Discord, some of our admins, Madman and Dwitters especially, have been doing some live battle reports of Spec Ops and have been playing on TTS, which is awesome for people to come watch and learn about the new game mode if you haven't printed everything out and played. And then if people have not noticed in the some of the Spec Ops sections of the Legion Discord, Pagani has been jumping in and offering insight, corrections, and discussing the game mode with people.
Oh, that's awesome!
Playing.
Yeah, good for him.
So, Will Pagani was, one of the 2 people who came up with Spec Ops. The transmission mentioned that Schick and Pagani were the 2 kind of people who pioneered it, and then Andrew Dursum, who is a Legion developer, as we hopefully now know from the rulebook coming out and some of the recent media they've done with yourself.
Yep. We interviewed him. It's confirmed. He's a developer.
I was in the lead. I knew I'd get there eventually. If you haven't listened to that, you should listen to the episode before LVO when the CRB dropped, because it was fantastic. And Will and Andrew did a fantastic job on that. And there are some key insights that will probably guide the future of Legion that you should listen to, especially if you have opinions about how the core rulebook was written.
Oh, people don't have opinions. They don't do that.
Definitely not. I've seen 0 opinions about the core
No
rulebook.
opinions. All right.
Anyway, it's a resource people should enjoy. I do want to mention that. I'm glad Dan brought it up. There's a Spec Ops section in the Legion Discord. Tell us how your games are going. Talk about the rules. Ask your questions.
Give feedback
see
through
what
official
the developers
channels.
have said to give about it. but
And there is
don't forget to fill out the form.
Yes.
Yeah, and there's a rules forum
Please don't forget
as well.
to fill out the form.
There is a subsection of the rules forum.
They made a subsection. It's under Star Wars Legion. Some people have been posting their general Star Wars Legion questions in there. Please don't do that, because then I have to move them. But yes, the developers and then us helpers, where our knowledge applies, have been answering questions about Spec Ops already. There was a question about like, oh, the card showed an R5 or R4 droid, but this other card said it's the ID10 droid. You know, there are like a couple easy things like that that have been taken care of in the sub forum, which is great. And as well as a couple other rule specific questions that people have had. So definitely check that resource out.
Okay. I think that's enough said on special operations, but we'll definitely be talking about it more in the future. Let's go ahead and move on, because we got some information out about Asajj Ventress.
Yes,
everybody's favorite bald bounty hunter.
Bald, edgy,
beyond Boba Fett.
With anger issues.
Yes.
You know, I have been waiting for Asajj for a very, very, very long time. Some of these recent articles have been my favorite things I've done so far connected to the game. And hers was a genuine pleasure, because I freaking love this character just from a Star Wars standpoint. Not even her Legion profile, but Asajj is great, and I think it's also extremely convenient that this is episode 150, and she comes in at 150 points.
She does.
Hey, what a coincidence.
Yeah.
I knew we
definitely not
somewhere.
like poetry, but LJ, let me ask you something.
Yes.
Is Asajj going to make an appearance, do you think, in special operations?
Probably not, because it's
okay, then I don't care. Let's go ahead and skip her.
Oh no, not my girl.
No,
but she will be in
awesome.
Shatterpoint. So.
I'll go through her card very briefly, because I know we've been talking for a while.
Yeah.
Pretty standard Jedi stuff: jump, deflect. She's got independent dodge one, which is cool,
interesting,
and definitely reflects her independent nature that she has. That was not a pun on purpose. Indomitable, which helps with her relatively low courage of 2. Immune pierce, that's expected. Relentless, a surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. And Jakai mastery. I always do that. Jar Kai mastery, a new mastery that when she's performing a melee attack, she may spend dodge tokens to improve attack results. So
dodge marksman?
I got a couple questions about that recently. It's
cool.
like marksman, but you spend dodges. It works the same, so you convert surges first. I've had some people asking me what you convert a surge to. You convert a surge to what it says on the card. So if it's a blank, you convert a surge to nothing, then you apply this ability. So a nothing would become a hit would become a crit, and that's it. There's nothing else. Stop trying to act like you get to add a second dice because you discovered something special.
All right. Stop being clever.
But somebody said it seriously. She's got 2 force slots, 2 trainings. Absolutely great on that front. No Master of the Force, you might notice. And, she doesn't have the same protections that Maul's built in with his triple action that kind of acts like a soft Master of the Force. So definitely some stuff that when you see her card, she looks like, and she is, a blender throwing 8 black dice with the possibility to get up to 9 if you went with tenacity on her.
Because you will.
But honestly,
really,
she is a little squishy. She will blend the crap out of a thing for sure, without a doubt. She is the Jedi that will look at Wookiees and be like, okay, I got this.
Let's do this. Yeah.
But she is a bit glass cannony, and I've seen some people comment on that, and then I had a very belligerent person on Reddit try to argue that she was unkillable, and I was like, all right, man, the first ATST that catches her out, have a good time with that. She's got deflect, which is great. It's going to help keep her alive, but I mean, honestly, she's going to be squishier than people think. A 3-up save does go away pretty quick under concentrated fire, and as I talked about at the beginning of the cast, I am noticing that the game is continuing to be a bit more lethal as time goes on. And so
especially when you're
definitely keep that in mind when you put her on the table.
Especially when you're spending those dodges for marksman or for improving dice as opposed to trying to dodge with them.
Well, and she's got Indomitable, which helps with that low 2 courage, but Ventress on one action is terrible.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, Relentless and Indomitable both help combat that, but she's not going to be good if you can get a little bit of suppression on her. So, your Master of Evil or catching her out with a suppressive weapon. Again, I know internet, she's got tools to deal with that. You don't have to remind me, I can read the card. But honestly, like, that is a tactic that is valid against her if you're able to take advantage of her relatively low courage, because a lot of operatives have courage 3 and she does not. And droids don't necessarily play the counter suppression game because they're droid players. They don't care most of the time, so you see less strict orders and lead by example or whatever. But honestly, it's something to consider around her, because I think having a strict orders on your T series or generic commander you bring with her might be valuable to ensure you get that second action. So I'd like to caution people against that. And then, of course, point 2, her command card art, absolute fire. The one pip of mine is a personal favorite of mine. I thought Annihilation Looms was always going to be my number 1 for sick card art, but the Jedi Shall Fall, brutal.
Yep.
I love that card. When I saw that, I was instantly in love with that. I Am Fear is great, and the card effect itself, not to be underestimated, gives her a little Grievous bomb. Doesn't have blast, so cover will be affecting that one. Watch out for that. That'll catch people the first time. And then, yes, my Master, her 3-pip, also super cool. I'll let you guys talk about that one, because that one's super spicy in my opinion.
Okay, so the 3-pip, yes, my Master. No units for orders on this one.
All.
Yeah, you must divulge this card. It stays in play. Divulge, deploy unit step. Permanent. Asajj Ventress gains bounty and reinforcements.
So yeah, bounty hunter.
Jedi bounty hunter.
We're getting a 2-for-1 Ventress here. I love it. Yeah.
Yes.
Divulge, deploy unit step, permanent. Asajj Ventress gains demoralize 1, Makashi mastery, and outmaneuver.
And Makashi mastery, for everyone who didn't remember, is Dooku's. So you can remove a pierce to. I'm sorry. It's remove a pierce to
push through
negate,
2 more.
To negate immune pierce on your opponent.
Oh, right.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes. And note that that only applies in melee. That's Makashi specific under the keyword in the rule book. I only mention that because people have brought that up with saber throw in the past, and that doesn't work for that. So you can't eat a saber and get rid of their immune pierce.
So this is no units, because you essentially don't play it during the game. You divulge it at the beginning, and it just stays in play.
There you go. That's it. This is happening.
And then those 2 divulges we mentioned, there is a big, bold line between the 2.
Right.
I'm assuming the intent is you choose one or the other. I'm sure there'll be some...
Correct.
Rules
the big, bold line
clarification.
cards...
Yeah.
That's not even unprecedented either. We've seen on Vader's 3-pip. The one that Operative Vader came with, and Cad Bane's might not have the separation. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's definitely not unseen. And yes, to make it very clear, I'll save myself a little bit of trouble on the rules forum. Yes, it's either top or bottom, not both. You either divulge it during deploy unit step and get the top half, or deploy during divulge and get the bottom half.
¿Por qué no los dos?
because
of game
this
balance.
isn't Burger King, you don't get it all your way.
Oh, okay. All right.
And then she's got one more.
Yep.
The Sith will rule. This is a Count Dooku card. It's got his art, his name, and it orders Count Dooku. So it is, one of the many team up cards we've seen in the past. Chewbacca being famed for having many of these.
Yep.
And the Sith will rule. You treat it as though it has a 2-pip card. We've seen cards like this a lot. Count Dooku gains a name token and a dodge. After Count Dooku activates, if Asajj does not have a face down, she activates. After she activates, if Dooku does not have a face down. Oh, wait, no, sorry. I almost got those confused. After she activates, if she has a face up towards flip it face down. So basically, it's kind of like I was thinking of Leia and Chewie's
chain activation
back-to-back card, Brains and Brawn.
Yeah,
I was thinking about Brains and Brawn. It's not quite as free-flowing as Brains and Brawn, where you can do Luke and Chewie back and forth. It's more like, yes, her Leia's 3-pip specifically, where you activate a unit, activate her in tandem. super cool to have that, because if you know the lore there, you know their relationship is something to be feared. And as somebody who ran Grievous and Dooku lists, this is like that list 2.0, and I'm super excited that they have a team up card.
That's a lot of points. That's a lot of Jedi points right there on the table. But still, yeah, that's going to be very flavorful, very fun, and I can't wait to see her on the table. There's more Legion news, and we're just going to go over this. What?
I'm thinking, let's talk about Remnant next episode, because it'll be after.
You think?
After Moff Gideon and Dark Troopers are out.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, we're running real late on time, anyways.
Yeah.
But yeah, Remnant coming out. We'll tease you for next time, guys. But big thank you, LJ, dude. Thank you so much for coming in and chatting with us. Always a pleasure. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If you have any news, questions, or feedback, you can email us at legionoutriders@gmail.com. Stop by our Facebook page, facebook.com/legionoutriders, or you can find us out in the world. LJ, where are you found?
I'm all over the place. I'm on the Big Legion Facebook group, and of course the Legion Discord as TalkPolite, and then of course answering your rule questions on the Legion Rules Forum, Atomic Mass Games, forums.atomicmassgames.com. Please keep sending them in. Don't forget to use that search function.
I was going to say something. Okay, Dan, how about you, bud?
It'd be shorter for Legion for LJ to say here what services he's not on at this point. So
he's not on Tinder, I don't think.
Mastodon, maybe.
Yeah.
Never mind. Not going to get myself in trouble and say other dating apps.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Bumble. Yeah. Anyways.
I was thinking Grinder, but it's fine. Move on.
Well, obviously.
Now I've got to bump the explicit rating up on this episode.
Why?
Great.
No, we don't.
Yeah.
Wall got 5 feet. Up it goes. More dating apps.
Yeah. There we go.
So yes, I am on the Discord as Outrider Dan or Dan Tech, also hanging out in your Twitch streams.
Thanks, which you can find at twitch.tv/captain_archer or on Twitter at grn_archer and on the Discord as Outrider Matt or Captain Archer. Thanks again, everybody. We'll see you next episode for some of that Imperial Remnant.
This concludes the current episode of the Legion Outriders podcast. You may cultivate a tactical advantage by observing the Outriders on Facebook or Twitter at Legion Outriders. Wisdom advocates subscribing to the podcast. Acting otherwise is reckless.